Okay, everybody, here we are. One of my favorite videos, perhaps my most favorite video of all time, The Circle. What's interesting to me is I saw this for the first time in 2007. Rial Michaud, gentleman out of Canada, was speaking at our event in Corpus Christi, Texas. He was making $1 million a year at the time, and I thought, wow, I just wish one day maybe I can be as good as that guy. Maybe I can make that type of income. Well, I got an opportunity to have dinner with him later on that night at a Landry's Seafood. He scratched out on a napkin this concept that I'm about to show you. He said it was the one concept that he showed over and over and over again to build himself $1 million business. I took that advice to heart and I started using this same concept over and over. I've never changed it, never wavered from it some 16 years later, and it's made me millions of dollars. So if you don't learn anything else from this entire website, or this entire series of videos, and if you can't do anything else but this one thing, please learn The Circle, get good at it, and I promise you, it will make you a lot of money. So let's get to the computer. Here we are at The Circle. This was drawn out to me, as I said before, on a napkin. I like to draw it out if possible, but obviously sometimes that's not always the case. So let's go through the PowerPoint. So the circle goes a little bit like this. Most people in America, right, have a pie chart that they save money in some way, shape, or form, or spend money in some way, shape, or form. So about 95% of all people in America, whether they make $10,000 in a month or they make $1,000 in a month, they're all broke at the end of the month. What's funny is doctors, they make 10,000 bucks, they spend what they make. Truck drivers make $1,000, spend what they make. Understand that in this country, 95% of people are just a paycheck away from being absolutely dead broke. So in this case, 5% of people in America do something totally different. You see, about 50% of your living expenses, or 50% of this pie goes for your living expenses. That's the things it takes to live a life. That's the food, the water, the electricity, the cars, things like that, the stuff it takes to live your life. There's another chunk of money that goes to Uncle Sam in the form of taxes. Listen, I'm all for paying my fair share of taxes, but I do not want to pay my unfair share of taxes. Justice Leonard Ham once said there are two tax systems in America. There's one for the informed and one for the uninformed. And let me tell you, that's true. The next piece of pie, that big old chunk you see down here in the bottom left, that's debt. Good old-fashioned American debt. We don't manufacture a lot in this country anymore, but we certainly manufacture a lot of debt. So if you're lucky, somewhere along the way, someone has shown you a way to eke out a sliver of savings. Look at that. And with that small sliver, you have to then put your savings in place, put your insurance in place, your emergency funds, your college funds, your investments. But what if I told you there was a way that you could legally eliminate some taxes? There was a way for you to legally eliminate some debt. And instead of paying Uncle Sam more than you need to and paying more to the bill collector, you could actually free up this large piece of pie and start saving that money for yourself. Wouldn't that be amazing? Well, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, once in a while, a new idea comes to an old industry. I moved here to Dallas, Texas. You can say wherever you moved to. And there's 8.5 million people in Dallas. I personally cannot help all of these people, right? I only have 2 hands and 24 hours. So if what I say is true, that I can show people how to lower their taxes, how to get out of debt and save that money for themselves, not asking for any more money, because the traditional financial services industry is going to tell you, stop eating out. They're going to cut into your living expenses, in other words. Stop eating out. Carpool your kids. Don't put your kids in soccer. Cut your cable down. Blah, blah, blah. Just like a diet, that will work for a short period of time, but people are creatures of habit. They will go right back to what they were used to. So I found out about 10 years ago when I moved to Dallas, this new way of doing things. What if I was able to help you lower your taxes and help you get out of some debt and free up that big piece of pie? Would that be worth another 30 minutes of your time? And the person's going to say to you, sure. I then say, how many people do you think in the Dallas-Fort Worth area need to hear what I have to say? if what I say is true, that we can do that. They're going to say to you, well, probably all of them, 95% of them, right? Most of them, they're going to give you some answer of some kind. Guys, I've done this video or this presentation or drawn it on a napkin thousands and thousands of times. And as God is my witness, only one time has somebody told me it's not worth another 30 minutes of their time to find out how to do this. When he told me that, I folded up my stuff and I left. That's a true statement. We're in a Starbucks cup of coffee, or a Starbucks office in Plano, Texas, and I rolled out. You can't help people who don't want the help. Keep that in mind. But my point here is simple. If you show them this concept, I promise you, they're going to say yes when it comes to this. Why is this important? Why do I show the circle every time? Because it's a way to tie them down to the next meeting. Remember, your goal is just to get them from one meeting to the next. Take them through the system. Let the system sort them out. So in this case, when I said, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, if I could show you a way to save money and stop paying Uncle Sam and stop paying the bill collector and save that for yourself, would that be worth another 30 minutes of your time, either now or at a later date? They're going to say yes. What did I just do there? I locked in the FLS, what we call the financial lifestyle strategy, which means is a fancy word for gathering information. And that's a fancy word for the next meeting. So for me, this is the concept that I draw all the time to lock in the next meeting. I sometimes say, look, if we do a good enough job here, we can use some of this money to pay off your debt altogether and get you completely out of debt. Wouldn't that be amazing? They're going to say, yes, it would. At that point, I've now created a next appointment and locked them in. And now I can move on to the next concept in the one-on-one, which is the Rule of 72 or the cash flow quadrant. And I can start moving them towards a recruit because I've locked them in to becoming a client. So I hope this circle makes sense to you. I wish that you could practice it, go over it again, pause it, rewind it, do whatever you got to do, watch it over and over and over, become proficient in your deficient areas. And that's the way for you to build a big business. So I hope that you'll use it. Talk to you soon.